let's start a little bit with what's new. And the latest are two things we want to talk about. Number one is a lot of people, and you can give me the number, are dependent on what are known as Section 8 vouchers from the federal government, which is one of the tools that the federal government uses to maintain affordable housing for people, particularly people who are pretty much not that far above the poverty level, and some of which clearly are below the poverty level. Those vouchers look like they were being threatened for perhaps as many as 10,000 or more New Yorkers. What's the good news there that has come down the pike recently?
Well, the really good, get to the bottom line, the good news is that those families that were in jeopardy are no longer in jeopardy.
What happened?
Well, let me take one step back if I could.
Okay.
The Section 8 program is a program in which the federal government provides rental assistance to families that are within an income band. It requires that they pay 30% of whatever their income is toward rent. So the Housing Authority, for example, if the rent's $1,000 and a family makes $100 a month, they would pay $33 toward rent, and the
33 or 30?
30. It's depending
30%,
on about 30%,
roughly 30%. Excuse me.
And that they would, and that the New York City Housing Authority, through the federal government, would provide the difference in subsidy to the landlord. So in this particular model, the Housing Authority would provide $970 to the landlord while the family is paying $30. And obviously, it's depending on what the family makes determines the income. We have over 100,000 families in New York City have the opportunity to have rent subsidy with this program. It's the largest in the country by far.
But not all of those who receive Section 8 actually live in public housing development?
Well, that's why I tried to do some definitions early on, David. The public housing in New York City has about 180,000 units of sort of traditional public housing. They are, in New York, the
projects,
projects,
as we know them. Yeah.
This program is actually separate from that program. So on top of the 180,000 units of traditional public housing that New York City Public Housing serves, there's another 102,000 Section 8s that are distributed. And this is the program that in many ways is invisible. You really can't see the housing itself because it's a private sector driven kind of program where our clients go into a regular apartment the way you or I would, and the only difference is that they have a Section 8 voucher that subsidizes their rent.
Because as we know, the projects, and we'll go back into the history of that, the projects are stamped. This is poor people's housing. Section 8, this is housing. Inside of that, some poor people live.
Exactly.
And so it's not given that kind of a stigma. Some people would see it because it allows people to meld into the general population of tenants.
Absolutely. One of the real benefits of the program is the mobility that it provides. So beyond the stigma, the voucher itself is associated with the family. So if they want to move someplace else, they have the opportunity to take that voucher.
Gives them choice.
Gives them a choice.
All right. So what happened that this is no longer threatened, and for how long is it no longer threatened?
And again, if I could take one step back
Sure.
to kind of share with you how we got to this point. About a year ago, plus, President Obama and his administration were new, and they had tremendous ideas of how they would like to move the country in a different direction. What that led to was some budget priorities and budget priority shiftings at a national level that meant that the budget for public housing and other federally funded programs were not available till late spring of last year. So what New York City Housing Authority did, not knowing what the budget was going to be, proceeded as if it were with the dollar figure they had the year before. As it turned out, the dollar figure was a little bit less than it was the year before as a transition between one administration to the other. And that there was also a requirement for a large rescission of dollars at a federal level, of which New York was, unfortunately, had a lot of their reserve funds.
Rescission, you mean cuts?
Cuts were taken.
Let's try to use language that everybody understands.
Thank you so much. So cuts were done. What that led to is the New York City Housing Authority, because it is so large, having to sort of quickly respond to less money and great need. Well, we got to the end of the calendar year last year, and we found ourselves short. We found ourselves in a terrible position of an unprecedented position of telling about 2,500 families, I know we issued you a voucher, but they're no longer any good because we don't have the money to support those vouchers.
In other words, you're holding counterfeit money, so to speak.
Pretty much. We had ensured those families that when we were back in business, that they would be the first ones to get the vouchers back. And we are still very much committed to that. But at the time, we had just spent as much as we possibly could to serve as many families as we possibly could. And the truth is, David, I think hindsight being 2020, I probably would have recommended we do the exact same thing. We were able to serve as many or more families than we obviously had the monies for, but I'm not holding my head down at all about that decision. We were able to serve more New Yorkers with that decision.